starting now. So good evening. As John was saying, I'm Tom Leahy and Candace Suarez. We're with a company called Optimum Ed, and Millwood School brought us in about a year ago to bolster the college prep program that they have here. Do an excellent job academically, and they had all the pieces to the puzzle in terms of helping kids move forward with the college plan. But things being what they are, they thought that they needed some more help. So here we are. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're all about, is help your child do a better job of college planning and executing that plan in terms of higher education. So the first thing I want to do is share with you. Where's my, okay. So for us, this is more, there's much more to the process of higher education than just filling out an application and writing an essay. It's a process. And we have to be engaged in that process. And that's what we bring here to Millwood, is a very defined process. And this kind of describes that for you. You can see there's basically three pillars to it, and they reside and operate simultaneously as we move through the process: admissions piece, a marketing piece, and a financial aid piece. But tonight we're going to talk about the admissions piece. That's where it starts. And when we think about higher education today, one of the biggest struggles, one of the biggest challenges that we have is our children have no direction when they go off to school, or they think they know what they want to do, but they get there and they soon find that what they thought this major was, or academic path, well, it isn't what they thought, and they change majors 2 or 3 times. And that 4-year experience quickly turns into a 6-year experience. And of course, the implications of that are that somebody is paying for those extra, credit hours that are accumulated that we really didn't need for the major that we finally secured. So part of what we want to bring here is efficiency, put some efficiency back into something that's become very inefficient for most families for a number of reasons. And the biggest reason is there's lack of planning ahead of the college experience. When I say planning, I'm talking about really figuring out what the best direction is, what the best school is, for whatever reasons we decide that would be, and to think through it and have a plan. And that starts with, what should you be when you grow up, basically. I mean, that's where it starts. It's not necessarily what you want to be, what you should be. And so that's what our assessment process is all about. The sophomores have been engaged in it here. In fact, I've sent out a lot of reports to the students already the last couple of days, completed assessments. So they got those in their email, and we're going to be showing you tonight what those reports look like, and how you should think about the results. But if we can do a good job of figuring out direction, what career path makes sense for us initially, and we're not going to sit here and tell you that what they get involved in coming out of college is what they're going to be involved in the rest of their life. No. What we're trying to do is figure out what makes sense for them right now to go to school, to get a degree, and to get hired, right? That's what it's about. The end game today should be the job and career, and not the college degree or the college major. It's what that education delivers in terms of a job and potential career. We have to think of it that way because of the cost involved. We have to have a return on that investment. Okay, and the student is investing too, their time and energy, and for them to walk away from college feeling they failed is a huge impact on self-esteem and self-confidence, and that's hard to overcome. So let's set them up for success when they go, and that's what, the process is all about, working the process to greatly increase the chances of success. So let's look at any questions about any of that. So that's what we're going to be guiding your kids through.
Yeah, and the fact that we're starting with you guys with taking that assessment at the end of the sophomore year, we'll see them in the school setting several times as juniors. Like this year, starting in January, we were in the classroom once a month to go through our process. So it's an ongoing conversation about the major and the direction and things like that. It's not a once and done, this is what you're doing. It's an ongoing conversation. We take them through that whole resume building. We, next, and in another couple of weeks, we'll be in with the juniors, sending them off for the summer with ideas on their essay writing and all of that kind of stuff. And then in the fall, we'll hit the ground running. And this year we were in weekly with the seniors to get them prepared with their essay writing and narrowing their college search and things. So we really have liked that time in the classroom with the kids. And we do workshops and things in the fall here too, right? With parents.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So more information coming.
All right. So you want to?
Sure. So what you're looking at now is the assessment that they took. It looks at 3 different major areas. The first being thinking style. So this is where it basically looks at how they process information. It looks at verbal skills and numerical skills and gives an overall composite, and then breaks it down into even more specifics, 4 different categories of verbal skill, verbal reasoning, numerical skill, numerical reasoning. Okay. So that basically is going to tell you what they're capable of doing based upon their skill set, their thinking style. The next comes the personality traits. And that is where we look at 9 different behavioral measures, and we give a score on those behavioral measures. And that's basically what they want to do, what suits their personality, and what type of environment they're most suited for. And then we look at interests. There are 6 major interest categories, and we'll show you your top 1, 2, and 3 of interest categories. So putting all 3 of those things together creates the profile and gives you the suggested career direction. Okay. And the next thing we show you is a bell curve. And the reason we do that is because it's based on that statistical information. So the numbers and things that we're going to show you, if you overlay the bell curve over it, the 5 is smack dab in the middle there. That's at the highest point. So the majority of the population is going to be under that highest part of that curve. So 95% of the population are going to be within 2 standard deviations of that center. So they're going to be that 4, 5, and 6 is the majority of the population. So if you're 9s or 10s or 1s or 2s, it means you're just a more unique profile. It doesn't necessarily mean one is better than the other one, that type of thing. And we'll go over the specifics of what the numbers mean in each of the categories. But especially for the thinking style, I don't want you to look at it and say, oh my gosh, a 5, they got a 50%, it's failing. It's not, it's average. It's kind of like that 100, on an IQ test.
Right.
Yeah.
And the more unique you are, the
Yeah.
more 1s and 2s, 9s and 10s, the more restrictive the jobs are going to be that the assessment delivers, because that's the whole point to the exercise, is this process is going to deliver jobs that are appropriate for the profile of that student based upon what people with similar profile are actually doing. And so we can then take a look at those. All right. So let's see, let's talk about the reports. So they're going to get 2 reports, written reports, and they're going to get a summary graph. And the 2 reports look exactly the same, and they are, with the exception of the jobs at the end. And we'll talk about that a little later. Mm-hmm. They also get a summary graph, and that's what we're going to use to talk about the assessment this evening. But I want to stress that it's going to be much more effective if you read the report mm-hmm. rather than look at the numbers. Okay.
Yeah, because it's easy to freak out and say, oh my gosh, a 2 in independence.
What is that? Okay. So we're going to kind of give you an idea of
Yeah.
what these things mean.
Yeah.
But there is an explanation of those numbers within the report. And I think it's much more telling to absorb that than to simply stare at the sheet. In fact, if we're dealing with someone on an individual basis, we don't even show them
Yeah.
the graph until after, because that's all, as human beings, that's where our attention would be, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, all right, so we're going to call up the graph.
So this is for Sally's sample. So this is what it looks like when you get it. So if you're looking at Sally's learning index, her overall learning index is a 6. So remember the bell curve with 5 being that mean. 6 is right there under that highest part of the bell curve. So she's average in her overall learning index. She's a couple outliers there. So her verbal skill is a 3. The verbal skills vocabulary, it asks them questions similar to the SATs, like analogy kind of questions and vocabulary. Verbal reasoning is how you use language to solve problems. Numerical ability is just basic math computation. And numeric reasoning was Sally's highest at a 7. And that is problem solving, like word problem math, kind of more higher end concepts.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. John starts at point A, Tom starts at point B, Tom's driving 60 miles an hour, that kind of.
Yeah. Exactly. Train.
Yeah. Right.
What time are they going to get to Boston?
Yeah.
The in-class time that we spend is coaching, working with them, teaching them the skills, getting them right.
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So this evening, it's sort of a general explanation of the assessment and how to interpret the results. After, if you want to have an individual consultation with us about your students' specific results, we're very happy to do that. Yeah.
Everybody on Zoom heard that too, right? You can all reach out to us if you want an in-depth explanation into your child and what it might mean.
Yeah.
It's a scale where 1 is weaker and 10 is strong.
I would say the learning index, yes.
Yeah, on
But
the learning
not
index,
not
yes.
the personality.
Yeah.
You know, you'll get that
Yeah.
as I explain
In
it.
the learning index, if you're a 10, you think better than somebody who's a 1.
Yeah.
That's what
Yep.
Right. But
It's
again,
just like
remember,
the intelligence test.
you're going to find very few people who are 9s and 10s,
Mhm.
Unless they're a theoretical physicist or
Right.
working on the next atomic bomb or something. Whatever,
Yeah.
but
And I haven't seen anybody below,
Yeah,
like, you
and
don't get
never-
1s and 2s.
like I
either.
said, that's why we show you the bell curve,
Yeah.
because the majority of us are 2 standard deviations.
Exactly.
No, exactly. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So
All right. So
behaviors.
behaviors. This is my favorite part. I like this part. All right. So you want to think of these behavioral traits and the personality traits as how they apply to the world of work. Okay. So the first one is energy level. So this does not purely mean whether your child has a lot of energy to run around. Okay. This has to do with the work environment that they prefer to work in.
Yeah. 10 is not ADD.
Right, exactly. So a 9 or a 10 on energy level would mean that they prefer a fast-paced work environment. They like to do a very quick pace of work. They can do one task after another and multitask and juggle a bunch of things. Think of like a chaotic emergency room kind of setting for a 9 or a 10. A 1 or a 2 in energy level prefers a much slower pace of work. Okay, this is somebody that maybe just does one task at a time, doesn't necessarily rush through them, a much slower pace, doesn't do well with time constraints and needing to rush.
Thoughtful, methodical.
Thoughtful, methodical, might need it to be quiet without a lot of chaos going on around them. Okay, so that's the extremes of that. Okay, so when we say 9s or 10s and 1s or 2s, again, the majority of the population is going to be under that bell curve, but it doesn't mean in these, it doesn't mean that a 1 is worse than a 10. It's just different preferences. Okay. The second one is assertiveness. And this is where we're looking at leadership. All right. So it doesn't necessarily mean whether they can lead or not. It means whether they need to lead. So a 9 or a 10 in assertiveness is the kind of person that walks into a room and immediately starts giving out directions and taking charge and organizing everybody and handing out tasks. All right. A 1 or a 2 can lead, but would rather sit back and let somebody else take charge. Are you sitting there giggling about? Yeah. Yeah.
Which one of our traits?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, and
yeah.
that's what we do when we do this with individual families. We do the exact same thing. We make them guess what they think, and yeah, we make the parents guess what they think. Yeah. So 1 or 2, as I was saying, in assertiveness doesn't mean you can't lead. It's that you really don't want to. You're happiest to sit back and let somebody else take charge.
Be part of the team.
Yeah. You're a good worker. You just rather sit, let somebody else take charge.
And again, it's not whether you can lead, it's whether you have to lead.
Right.
Right.
Mhm.
From a personality standpoint.
Yeah.
That's why we call it assertiveness rather than leadership.
Yeah. So the next one is sociability. And this is kind of the way it sounds, but think of it as a work environment. If you are a 9 or a 10 in sociability, you are the kind of person that loved group project day in school. You are energized by working around people, bouncing ideas off of each other, collaborating, that type of thing. If you are a 1 or a 2, you would prefer to work by yourself in your little cubicle with your laptop or in the lab with rats on your own. Okay, so those are the extremes for sociability. Manageability is the next one. If you are a 9 or a 10 in manageability, you are a rule follower. You are looking at those policies and procedures and checking them off as you meet them, making sure that you're checking the rules before you engage in something and you are following it to a T.
Compliant.
If you are a 1 or a 2, you're a rebel. Okay, you don't really care about the rules. You just do it the way you think it's supposed to be done, and you don't worry about the rules and the policies. Okay. The next one is attitude. I like to think of this one as like optimism, pessimism, glass half full, glass half empty. So a 9 or a 10 has a very positive outlook on people and outcomes. So they're going to be the person in the group that says, oh my gosh, that's a great idea. I'm pretty sure that's going to work. Let's give it a try. Really positive about how things are going to turn out. The boss is the best person in the world. This is a great place to work. Optimistic. If you are a 1 or a 2 in attitude, you're a little bit more pessimistic. You might be like, why would we try something new? This is working just fine the way it is. I don't know why we want to try it that way. I don't think that will ever work. Okay, the boss is out to get me kind of person. All right, so that's attitude. The next one is decisiveness. So this is the speed at which you make decisions. If you're a 9 or a 10 in decisiveness, we like to use a firing range analogy. You'd be a ready, fire, aim if you're a 9 or a 10. You make really quick decisions without really thinking so much about them. You might, quick trigger. If you're a 1 or a 2 in decisiveness, you are ready, aim, aim, aim. You might get around to firing one day. So you're kind of paralyzed by decision making and don't really make that leap and make decisions. So that's the decisiveness, the speed at which you make decisions. The next one is accommodating. So this is how collaborative you are and how generous you are in things. So if you're a 9 or a 10 in accommodating, you are so accommodating that you really don't voice your opinion much. You just kind of allow other people to kind of step all over you. You're a little bit of a doormat if you're really high in accommodating. You're not comfortable standing up for yourself or your opinion. If you are a 1 or a 2 in accommodating, you might be that person that's stepping all over the other person, okay, to get your point across. It's your way or the highway if you're a 1 or a 2, right? The next one is independence. And this does not mean whether your child is capable of going off and living on their own. Okay, this is how they approach work. A 9 or a 10 in independence means that they would like to be given a task and left on their own to do it. Okay, they like to be independent in their work. They do not like to be micromanaged. They like to figure it out on their own. A 1 or a 2 in independence, on the other hand, needs those step-by-step directions. Okay, they need maybe someone even to coming in and check and say, you know what, good job on step number 1. Why don't you go on to step number 2 now? You know, that kind of check-in for independence. I like to think of it as if you got a delivery to your house for something that needed to be put together. A 9 or a 10 in independence is that kind of person that's going to pull everything out, start putting it together without looking at the instructions. Whereas a 1 or a 2 is I'm laying out all my pieces, I'm checking it with the pictures that are on the thing, and I'm putting the instructions there and starting at step 1 and going to step 2 and all of that. Okay, so that's the difference in independence. The last one is objective judgment. This one, where decisiveness had to do with the speed of decision making, objective judgment has to do with how you make decisions. So a 9 or a 10 in objective judgment uses logic, data, facts in order to make decisions. They are pros and cons list makers. They use data and historical, things to make decisions. A 1 or a 2 in objective judgment, they are more intuitive, feelings-based, and they go with their gut when they make decisions. All right. So that is the 9 personality traits. So before we go to the next one, does anybody have any questions, either on Zoom or here in person? Okay. I'm gonna take a break now.
You gonna take a break?
I'm gonna take a break now. Stop talking.
Okay, so I'm gonna jump over here back to our report for this. So we saw thinking style and we saw personality. So now we're going to talk about interests, the last thing that comes together to create the profile. And they consider 6 different interest categories, and these are those 6. And we basically identify the top 3 for the student in order of priority. So when you look at the interests that are on the report, the first interest is the big driver. That's the big passion thing. And then the second and the third is there, but it's not as powerful as the other 2. So it could be enterprising. If they're an enterprising person, then they have interest in activities associated with persuading others, right? Their sales, entrepreneurship, that sort of thing. Financial administrative doesn't mean you're selling stocks or bonds, working in a bank. It means that you like to organize information and business procedures. People service, you want it to have a positive impact. Technical, that's your scientific data, research, that sort of thing. Mechanical, hands-on, equipment, tools. It could run the gamut from, construction to medical equipment, but you are a hands-on person and oftentimes a builder of some sort. Creative doesn't mean you're putting paint on canvas. It means that you think in a creative, in an innovative way, always looking for the better mousetrap. Okay, so those are the 6 interest areas, and we'll, the student's report will identify their top 3. And so, like in Sally's case here, she was enterprising first, secondly, people service, and third, creative. All right, and so what's going to happen then at the end of the report, when they were taking the assessment, the students were asked to pick 3 out of 16 job categories. Okay. All right. Okay, so these are the 16 job categories. They were asked to pick 3 of these to see what job matches were associated with their profile that were under these categories. All right, so that's why you get 2 reports. The first report is going to show those jobs under the categories that they picked. But when we get the results, we go in and we uncode the boxes they marked, and we run their profile across all 16 categories.
Which I think is really good, especially the younger the student is too, because they,
Some of them, they don't know
what all those categories mean. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and the other reason is
Yeah.
just the way that the assessment is built. This is a hypothetical, Sally again, but so, we lay her profile over the top of the job coding. So in this case, widget bender, they say if you want to be a widget bender, you have to score a 5, 6, or 7 in overall learning index. So Sally was a 6. She had a couple of outliers here, but 82% match. Behaviorally, not a good match. She shouldn't be a widget bender.
She would hate
Probably
it.
have to go home every night and decompress, right? And then 71% match for interest. So that the 3 come together to determine that this is a 69% match for Sally. Okay, so they draw the line at 75%. So this job wouldn't show up on her array. Okay, but we still have a 25% spread between a 75% match and 100%, right? So when we look at the profile under one category, we may have 20 jobs show up because of that spread. But when we look at their profile across all 16, that 20 may be reduced to 6 or less because there's better matches in other categories. So that's,
Somebody else that needs to
oh.
come.
So this, what's shown here, then the 69% is matched to what Sally herself selected.
No, this is just this particular
Job.
widget bender
Widget bidder.
and Sally's profile. An example of, Yep.
Right. Yeah. So this is what basically, yeah, that's what the assessment does, is it takes her profile and puts it on top of all the jobs out there, and then picks the ones that,
in some sort of
75% or
fancy
better.
analysis program.
all right. So the second report is going to have those best top matches across all 16 categories. Okay.
We call it the blue and the green report.
Blue and green report.
The blue one at the bottom is going to show the 3 categories that they picked, and then the green report
Yeah.
is just going to show
Yeah, so-
across all the categories.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's a lot of eye opening.
A lot of eye opening. Yeah. So you can see here, business management administration, public law, public safety, and what else did Sally pick? Transportation. Okay, so you can see the different jobs there, and then that's the specific to that category. And then this is the green report, which has the best top matches, and that number on the side here corresponds to the category, right? So we got agricultural sales, obviously under agriculture, food, and natural resources. So you can readily see what she is best suited at across all categories. And then you can take this is the first step. So we have to take this further and to look at these jobs and determine what is really appropriate. And what we want to be able to do is combine passion and viability, right? What can you get your heart and mind around in terms of work, but what is going to also pay the bills, right? Because I know, when your student comes back from college, having graduated, you want them to come to visit, but not to be a tenant, right? So that's this is what this is all about. And
Well, I think the important thing about this is it just kind of exposes them to what's out there, because, our kids have that idea of, sure, they know nurses, teachers, they know what mom and dad does, what aunt and uncle does, what their neighbor might do, but like they just don't know what's all out there. So they might think that they want to be a teacher, and that shows up on there
Right.
as an appropriate job. But then the more we explore with them, they don't really like the idea of the big classroom setting. Maybe they like one-on-one stuff.
Right.
So maybe they like more hands-on manipulative things. So maybe they should be like an occupational therapist. Like it
Right.
all just kind of, it's like
it's
art based on science.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So the
Yeah.
How often are the careers refreshed? Because,
Well, you'll see, we'll show you where these live links take you.
yeah.
So it takes you out to like a website called the ONET, and that is refreshed really often.
So
So
you'll
if
see.
the job has disappeared and turned into something else, this link will take you to whatever it
Right.
is
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. So when they get these reports, they'll be PDFs, and these links will be live. So they'll be able to do exactly this. So let's go take a look at hotel manager. Okay. So we click on the link, and I'm gonna have to stop sharing and come back in because now I'm going out to the,
Because they won't, on Zoom, they won't be able to see the, the switch.
right. Okay, so the ONET. All right, so lodging managers. Okay, well, that's the umbrella, career, and it tells you what you do as a lodging manager. It's updated on a yearly basis. What would you do in terms of that job, different titles you might hold, and then it goes into some really deep dive stuff like daily tasks, technology, the knowledge you have to have, skills, abilities, work activities, detail work activities. And you can, if you want to look even deeper, you can look at this on a detailed point of view and see how important each task is to the job, whether it's core or supplemental, that kind of thing. So,
Hey, let me ask a question.
Sure.
So what one of those factors, and I'll just kind of put this out here, trying to wrap my head around it, like a border patrol agent and a firefighter and a forensic accountant, although those are in that public safety type of thing, two of those jobs actually take a physical ability.
Sure.
And I didn't see that kind of in the mix versus the intellectual and all the other type of things.
It's not. And I think that's where the individual, like the conversations come from, right? Like that would be one of those things that as you're looking at this, it shows the tasks and the necessary things that are required as core activities of that job. And it would be a conversation of whether you'd have the capabilities to do those physical tasks.
And if we looked at something that required physical strength under one of the categories, like work activities we're looking at now, it would probably indicate that one of the things you have to do is, lift and shove or whatever it is that, that's required, so that you'll get a good idea based on this information, exactly what's involved in doing that work. Just because right now we're not looking at a job that requires physical activity, that we're not seeing that expressed here.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I just didn't know how one of those factors kind of played into that.
Yeah, the assessment doesn't necessarily measure that.
It's not gonna, it's not gonna say you need to be able to lift 100 pounds.
Right.
No, but
it will indicate that it's physical.
Right.
When you get to that, when you look at that job under the description. Yeah. And then it'll also talk about training and education. This is job zone 4. There's 5 job zones. It'll tell you of the people doing the work, 72% have bachelor's degrees. So that, to be competitive in the field, you probably need to get a college degree. And then, related occupations. This is also a really nice feature where if you don't like lodging managers, maybe you want to be a gambling manager. All right. Okay. But you can, you can really do some
to go down the rabbit hole
on
of
these
all the
things,
related careers and things.
Yeah.
Things you never even thought of.
Yeah. So this is all the passion piece. Does this make sense to me? In terms of, obviously it meets your profile. It wouldn't have, shown up, but now we're going a deeper dive, reading about these jobs. Does it make sense? Is this something I can see myself doing, on a daily basis? The passion piece. And then we need to marry that up, obviously, with the the practical part. Is it viable? And so down here, we can, you can put any state you want in here, zip code, but just for sake of showing an example, we'll go here and, okay, so they don't have any Richmond numbers If they did, they would have another graph here, but we can compare Virginia numbers to the United States in terms of salary range. So you can see that we start out a little higher in Virginia as a lodging manager than we do nationally. They both top out about 108 if you get to the top of your industry. So we can sit here and say, okay, based on the commitment and the investment I have to make in getting a 4-year degree in this field, am I going to be starting out at a salary that makes sense, right? Or could I do something else and fare better? So that's why this information is important, is to be able to make those kind of decisions. And we can also look at growth or decline. Excuse me.
This one has a decline in the United States.
It's of 12%. So, if it was me, and here in Virginia, 3%, but there's only 130 job openings each year. So you're going to have to be the very best, or you're going to have to look outside the borders of Virginia probably to find work, right? So this is the practical information that you can look at to decide whether it makes sense to pursue this job that you think you want to do. Okay. So that's what this is all about. And this is available. They have this tool the rest of their life now that they've taken it. And I can tell you that if they took it again when they were 55, the deliverables would not change. What I mean by the deliverables, the jobs that are in their reports would not change. I'm not saying they don't get a little smarter or their personality might shift a bit, but not enough based on all the variables involved in creating the profile that it's going to throw a job out or bring a new one in. We are who we are, and it's pretty, consistent. So obviously, it's moving to the future. There's going to be new jobs created, whatever, and those things would, be entertained through the ONET. But in terms of their profile, it's solidified. So, I get the question all the time, well, should he take it again when they get ready to go to college or something? No, they don't have to. All right. Let's see. Any other questions? Again, if you want to meet individually and do a Zoom meeting with the family and us, look at your students' results and have that conversation, be happy to do that.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Get some water too.
So
Yeah, we'd be happy to meet with you guys, if you wanted us to go over your child specific assessment and, because they're going to have this report, so they can spend some time digging and looking, and then we can kind of come together and talk about that on a one-on-one basis, but we will be in the classroom doing the same thing at some point.
Yeah. So, and my other comment is this is a partnership, this effort. It's a partnership between the student and us and the parents. So we want you involved, right? We want your input. And so, don't feel like you have to sit on the sidelines. Okay. You're part of the process, an important part. What did I do?
I just don't know where they went. I was just trying to find it.
Let's see.
Go down here to the
Let me
camera.
stop sharing. How about that might help?
Maybe.
There
There they are.
they're all there.
I'm like, where did they
I'll put
go?
us back on the screen since we. Hey,
There we
okay. All right. So anyway, like I said, partnership. So be involved, reach out. If you have questions, don't be shy. And we're going to be, part of the family here for the next couple of years with your students anyway. So, yeah. Anything else we can?
Yeah. Any final questions or thoughts or? Okay.
You get your email with the assessment or?
Yeah, either that, or if you wanted to meet with us, you can, if you go on to our website, which is optimumedcenter.com, And what would they do? Just do the contact?
There's a contact
Yeah,
form that you can,
It
and
just
then in the
goes right to
comment
the-
section, say we want to have a
just say you're. from Millwood.
one-on-one meeting with us.
Or, if it did come, if an email did come from us, just replying to that would be fine too.
Yeah, just let you know, this is all part of your tuition, so you don't have to pay anything extra for this one. Everybody understands there's no additional cost for any of this stuff. This is all part of the Millwood stamp. So I know sometimes when you have external people, there's like you have to reach into your pocket.
That crossed my mind.
Yes, so put that on the bed. For now, just so you know.
Yes, yeah.
That's all included. We're picking up the bill for this.
Oh, what, I mean, made
I
you
know,
go
you
away.
made
There
me
we
go
go.
away.
Oh,
There
sorry.
I am.
Okay. There you go. All right. Anyway, all right. Well, that's what we have for this evening. I want to say so.
I'll answer him. Go ahead, talk.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead. Let's stop the recording.